Good evening, world community. Boy, it's nice to be at the 2015 Parliament of the World's Religions in Salt Lake City, one of my favorite cities in the western part of the United States, in the whole United States, in the Western Hemisphere, in the world, in the universe. I could keep going. It is a great city. Congratulations to CPWR and all the partners here in Salt Lake who have made this wonderful event happen. Can we give them a round of applause? It is no small thing to get 10,000 peace-loving people in the Salt Palace to practice their loving peacefulness, let us say. So, in about 15 minutes, this stage is going to be taken to a planet called Interfaith Cooperation by a group of people called the Emerging Leaders. Over the course of the next few minutes, we have a couple of very important announcements from partners of the Parliament of the World's Religions. The first announcement comes from our friend, Mr. Ravindran, the president of Rotary International. Ravi, as he likes to be called, started his company at 27. It became the largest packager of tea in the world, but he dates the transformational moment of his life to when he was 21 years old and he joined Rotary, and he gives all of the credit for his success in both business and service to the joining of Rotary. He's very proud to serve as the president. Following that, we'll be welcoming Molly Horan, my friend and the terrific communications director at the CPWR, to make a couple of important awards. And following that, prepare to get transported to a planet called Interfaith Cooperation. Mr. Ravindran.
Hi, good evening. You know what? I would have preferred to dress like a lot of you all than wear all this stuff here. Unfortunately, I had to go for another meeting where I need to dress like this. So you'll forgive me for not wearing the right clothes. I'm really pleased to see so many of you. I can see some faces I saw this morning. And I'm glad you're here. Not just because I like seeing you again, and I'm glad you're here at this Emerging Leaders session. Because to me, the idea of service is essential, not only to leadership, but also to live a life of faith. In 1893, 122 years ago, Swami Vivekananda, a monk from India, traveled to Chicago from Calcutta to speak at this very first Parliament of Religions. He spoke of Hinduism, and that's why I'm telling you about him, because I'm also a Hindu. We both belong to the same faith. He spoke of the idea of tolerance, of universalism, of the acceptance of all faiths as equal, each holding the same claim to truth. He spoke of the immense, dazzling variety of the world's religions as simply different paths, each one winding according to its own choosing, but each one finally leading to the same goal, service to the divine. At that time, in that place, this idea was quite revolutionary. But a few short years later, in that same city of Chicago, another man, an American, a Christian this time, spoke of some of these same ideas. His audience was small. His voice was quiet, but his thoughts no less radical. This man, his name was Paul Harris, shared the belief that all religions were equally valid and that the trappings of tradition and observance were merely trappings, while their essence remained the same. He spoke of measuring others by their deeds, not by their creeds. He valued friendship above dogma, kindness above conviction. He saw the entire world with all its inhabitants as a beautiful gift belonging equally to all, given by God, along with the duty for caring for it and for each other. In this, without knowing it, he echoed the teachings of Vivekananda's own guru, Ramakrishna, saying that all living beings were an embodiment of the divine self, and that therefore service to God could be rendered by service to mankind. In 1905, Paul Harris founded not a religion, not a place of worship, but he founded the first Rotary Club, thereby beginning the Rotary movement that grew and spread year after year, decade after decade, nation after nation. Today, there are no fewer than 34,000 Rotary clubs with over 1.2 million members in 200 countries and geographical areas. And I am here this evening as their representative. I realize that in this forum, I am possibly a round peg in a square hole, for Rotary is really not a religion. Neither does it replace a religion, but it certainly complements it. It elevates our faith even as it elevates us. It allows us the chance to truly serve the divine, indeed, reclaiming the heart of our humanity by serving those who are in the greatest need. You could, of course, say, so what is so profound about this concept of service? After all, service is simple. Service is simply charity. And this is an idea common to every religion. As the great sage Hillel said, love your neighbor as yourself, the rest is commentary. But what makes Rotary unique is that it is a framework in which we serve others, not with, not through, despite our religion, but in parallel to it. In Rotary, you can have a dozen faiths in one room. In Rotary, every religion is respected. Every tradition is welcomed. Every conviction is honored. We have only one caveat, and that is our faith may never be permitted to divide us, can only unite us. For in Rotary, you see, we come together in friendship and we are bonded by one thread, the thread of service. And the power of service to unite people has been proven over the last 110 years to be extraordinary, because service to others provides a bridge. It gives people a way to come together, a reason to work together, whatever their differences or their debates. When it is for the common good, the good of their community, their children's future, people begin to cooperate in ways that would simply be seen as impossible in some other context. And the result of this are quite literally changing the world. 3 decades ago, we were already a very large international organization, having tens of thousands of clubs, hundreds of thousands of members, and having completed some very serious, very ambitious service already. We had, of course, countless clubs and projects that provided water, sanitation, nutrition, education to all those who needed it. We had built schools, we had built hospitals, we had built houses. Yes, we had done a great deal of projects of this nature. But the time had come for us to aim higher, to find a project that would unite Rotarians everywhere in the world, in the whole world, in the pursuit of one single shared goal. The goal we chose was the total global eradication of polio, making polio only the second disease after smallpox to be completely eradicated or removed from the earth. At that time, in 1985, there were 125 countries in the world where polio was an active threat. About 1,000 children were either paralyzed or were being killed every single day. All this, even though there was a vaccine that was cheap, that was effective, and that could have been easily administered. We thought, what excuse have we got for not trying? What excuse have we got for not making this effort? And we had no excuse. And last month, 30 years later, several billions of dollars later, the last country in Africa with wild polio stopped transmission of this disease. We now have only 2 countries left sharing the one remaining reservoir of wild polio virus across one border, the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we have every reason to be optimistic that in a very short while, these 2 countries as well will see their last case. And you know what? The most incredible thing about all this, beyond the obvious, beyond this colossal achievement of completely eradicating a disease that has plagued humanity for millennia, the incredible thing about it is not just that it is being done, not just that it is so close to being done. The incredible thing about it is how it was being done. The level of cooperation, the optimism, the commitment, the ability, the willingness, the desire of so many people in every country in the world, of every faith, of every color, from every background, rich and poor, to join us in this work. The number of partners who have joined us along the way, the governments, the local health authorities, the Gates Foundation, the UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and all those health workers who got out and risked their lives, who searched the hills and the jungles and the deserts for every last child, all of them united in pursuit of this one goal, a world without polio, a world with a little bit less of fear, a world with much more hope. And because at the end of the day, how can we say that we are God-fearing men and women? How can we even say that we serve God if we do not do our best to take care of all God's creations. For my friends, God's work on earth must be done by all of his people on earth. It must be done by every one of us. If we fail in that, we fail in the task we were placed here to do. We fail in our humanity. And so, whatever religion all of you represent here in this forum, however you conceive of God, of service, of charity, of our responsibility to each other, I ask you all to remember that God is not up there. God is down here. He is with us. He is in us, in all of us here. And whatever you do for the least of us here down below, you do for him above. Thank you.
Good evening, 2015 Parliament of the World's Religions. How are you feeling? I am Molly Horan. I direct communications for the Parliament, so seeing this crowd makes me feel really good. I have an amazing honor this evening. I'm giving an award to two of my heroes. When we speak today of countering violence and discrimination, we think of movements, large protests, and Twitter. Often, though, the first step in raising awareness is careful and considered documentation of hate crimes in order to educate the public, who often remains woefully unaware. The Outstanding Journalist Award is awarded to an individual who provided a distinguished and outstanding contribution to peace and justice by being an ally and concerned bystander in the presence of a hate crime. As an individual, they realized that when we see something, we must say something. Innocently standing by in the face of injustice is not an option. The recipient of this award has set out to stop hate, stop bullying, and build safe, inclusive communities for all. Recognizing that real change takes place at the local level, this recipient has targeted local communities, schools, and law enforcement, and created a series of short films that I love. They spark community dialogue and work to prevent hate and tolerance from growing in communities. I am pleased and honored to present this award to the creator of the film series Not in Our Town, Patrice O'Neill.
Thank you so much for this honor. If there's one thing that we've learned in these 2 decades of Not in Our Town, is that love overcomes hate. We've seen it in community after community across the country and around the world. Not in Our Town began with a story about people who stood up for their neighbors when they were under attack by white supremacists in Billings, Montana. There were attacks on a Native American woman's family, on an African American church, and each time, led by people of faith, the community responded. When a 6-year-old Jewish boy placed a menorah in his window for Hanukkah, a cinder block was thrown through the window. People knew that the violence was escalating and they had to do something. That year in Billings, Montana, as a sign of solidarity in a place with very few Jewish families, 10,000 people put menorahs in their windows. The white supremacists went away. There was a Methodist minister whose church was also attacked. His name was Keith Turney. And he said that the incident reminded him of an Iroquois term that speaks of the benevolent desires of the soul. This idea that if the goodness in ourselves, in our souls, does not come out, we get sick. And he said there's great goodness in the world. We just need permission for it to come out. So incredible thanks to all of you for letting this great goodness in the world come out. At Not in Our Town, we are so proud to tell the stories of people who are standing up. People like Pardeep, Kaleka, who you'll meet in a moment, and Arno Michaelis and Rahul Dubey, who stood up in the aftermath of the trauma of hate in Oak Creek, Wisconsin in August 2012, when 6 Sikh worshipers were murdered in their town. Their story is so inspiring. They have shown us that if we face our fear, if we find courage, we can stop hate together. Thank you so much for this honor, Molly, and thank you.
Wow. It really makes you believe that we have a purpose and a potential to change the world when you hear about that. And now, this award comes right out from my heart. This is the Faiths Against Hate Award, and it's a dream of mine to present it to the recipients you're going to meet. Hate is rising. We all know it. Many of us sitting here have experienced it firsthand. As individuals, communities, and faith traditions, this presents us with a responsibility to act, a responsibility to educate and inspire, and above all, a responsibility to counter hate with as much love and compassion as we can muster. The Faith Against Hate Award is awarded to just such an organization that in the face of unthinkable tragedy has risen above and beyond and has shown us the true power of faith. In the wake of the Sikh Temple of Wisconsin shooting, religious believers and disbelievers alike were appalled across the country. However, one group in particular stood out in defiance, in solidarity, and in triumph. They met hate head-on with an attitude that was fearless, creative, and compassionate. They demonstrated to us and to the world that what faith communities can accomplish when they work together can go all the way. Through educating and inspiring children in schools to become more active participants in their communities, develop better teamworking skills, and tolerance for personal differences, this organization has countered hate in the best way possible, love. I am pleased and honored to present the Faith Against Hate Award to Pardeep Kaleka, Arno Michaelis, and Rahul Dubey of Serve to Unite.
Thank you so much. It's just been beautiful since we've been here. I've been seeing so many people with turbans and representing Sikhi, being compassionate, just being here, being present. This award is in response to the worst race-based hate crime that this country had seen in 50 years. Since the time the 4 little girls endured the impact of a bomb intended for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., coming out of a church that similar Sunday morning. That sparked the civil rights movement. We are not defined by the actions committed against us. We are defined by the reactions we have in response.
Thank you, everyone. I want to thank each of you who is here, because we all are making a difference. By being over here, you mean a lot to all of each other, to us, to yourself, to your parents, to your friends, to your loved ones. That's who we are. We represent humanity. We represent change. We represent faith. We are the world's citizens. Thank you again.
In the late 1980s and early 1990s, I was a member of white supremacist hate groups for 7 years. I've done horrible things. I've hurt innocent people with my bare hands. I have a lot that will haunt me for the rest of my life. But every day today, I'm grateful that there are human beings who had the courage to treat me as a human being when I least deserved it. They set an example for me of how we should treat each other and how we should care about each other, and changed the course of my life in 1994. Today, I'm so honored to work with Serve to Unite, and I love that Molly used the word defiance, because Serve to Unite is about defying hate. It's about defying violence. We have an annual gathering of our students every year. The first time we did it, we had 400 kids from all over Milwaukee, of every ethnic background, of every walk of life. And at one point in the summit, we had 30 kids on stage, third graders, who taught all of our other students up to 12th grade how to sing a song called Salam. It's a song of peace in Hebrew and Arabic, and within 20 minutes we had this whole crowd of kids singing this song. And I thought to myself, this is a white supremacist's worst nightmare. That kind of human kinship and love for each other is hatred's worst nightmare. So please join us in continuing to defy hate and violence. Thank you.
Sego, Zewagwego. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Indigenous people who are from this area. I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous nations from the Great Salt Lake region, the Great Basin, the state of Utah, the Paiute, the Ute, the Goshute, and the Navajo. With a good mind, if there is anyone that I've forgotten, or if I've pronounced anything incorrectly, I'd like to apologize and know that with my mind and my heart, I'd like to acknowledge all of you. So that being said, Zewagwego. Danti Yungats Gungwahaga, Ganyangehaga, Gaderi Wabeyansa. My name is Dawn Maracle, and I'm Mohawk from Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory. And I'm really honored to have been asked to be here today and to be one of your MCs for tonight with Eboo Patel. Can you give him a round of applause? He's done great so far. There's a little more work to be done yet as well, but I am working at Ryerson University in Toronto right now, and I'm the manager of Aboriginal Student Services there. I've been working in Aboriginal education for more than 22 years, from a student leader all the way up to a graduate student, and I am 1 year away from finishing my PhD on Iroquois people and tobacco. Thank you. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Eboo up here to introduce himself as well.
One of the most inspiring experiences of my life took place at the Parliament of the World's Religions in Cape Town, South Africa in December of 1999. The great Nelson Mandela spoke, and he came to the podium, and the first thing that he did was point out into the Cape and say, "I would still be there." And there was Robben Island. I would still be there in that prison where I spent a quarter century of my life if it was not for the Christians and the Muslims, the Jews and the Hindus, the Baha'is and the African traditionalists and secular humanists of South Africa who came together in an interfaith movement called the Struggle Against Apartheid. And I thought to myself, why don't we teach young people about how inspiring human history has been when faith is a bridge of cooperation rather than a barrier of division or a bludgeon of domination? Why don't we invite young people to take that baton and build it into the future? Why do we so often write the script of inevitability of religion as a source of conflict? The Parliament event is our chance to show the world that it can be different, that the script can change, that bridges are in our future, and that we commit to being those bridge builders. I was inspired in 1999 to start an organization called Interfaith Youth Corps, which works to train those emerging leaders, some of whom you will see on stage today, to build a world in which interfaith cooperation is a norm. It's not the exception, it is the central organizing principle of human life. I want to thank the Parliament of the World's Religions for showcasing this work, for inviting emerging leaders on the stage to show us all what that world can look like by embodying it on this stage.
But first, I'd like you to help me welcome the Young Whirling Dervishes. The Pacifica Institute was founded as a nonprofit organization by a group of dedicated volunteers. The idea was to do good for the community that they live in. The Pacifica Institute seeks to accomplish this by respecting both religious and non-religious identities through its wide range of activities like social responsibility projects, festivals, panels, conferences, talks, civic engagement projects, annual dialogue and award ceremonies, dinners, intercultural trips, and study abroad programs. If you could please help me welcome them to the stage.
told you these emerging leaders were going to transport you. Thank you so much to the whirling dervishes. I want to make an announcement about food and grace and generosity. The Sikh community will be serving the langar meal for lunch each day from 11:30 to 2:30 in Community Hall D. It is delicious. It is beautiful. We want to thank you. I suggest to you all to go eat there and to partake of the wonderful food and that spiritual tradition. And while you're there, don't forget to stop in the cultural hall and check out the many groups are exhibiting there and expressing their spiritual and ethical traditions there. It is another great way to experience the Parliament. I want to take this opportunity to invite my friend Donovan Arthen to the stage. Donovan will be expressing the ceremony of inspiration. He is a member of the Earth Spirit community in Massachusetts, the former executive director of Peace Jam, New England. Donovan.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much. It's amazing to look out at this room and see so many people so earnestly excited to hear the words of young people who are doing amazing things in the world. I feel very lucky in my life to have grown up coming to this conference. My very first one, I was 6 years old in Chicago, and I've been coming ever since. And it has been amazing to grow and turn into a young adult and an activist and a spiritualist, and to see and to know so much about so many other faiths in the world because of what all of you have taught me over the years. When we were discussing this plenary, we were rejoicing in the opportunity to share the wisdom of young people with the world. And one of the things that you all have taught me about interfaith is that this is the time when we get to celebrate our diversity, when we get to enjoy and struggle through the differences that we have, while also discovering the commonalities. And one piece, one element that I and others who I've spoken with have found is that in many of our traditions, in so many of our traditions, water is something very sacred. It's something that washes us and cleanses us, gives us life, sustains us. It's an image that we conceive of in terms of reflection or buoyancy and traveling. And so, to draw us together and to bring us to a place where we're ready to receive inspiration, where we're all ready to hear these words of wisdom from these amazing young people who will speak today, I'd like to invite you all to join me in a small ceremonial activity. We call it the Rain of Inspiration. So first, I'd love for you to think about in your own mind what water means to you in a sacred context. And I'll start on one edge of the stage and go across. And I'll demonstrate a motion, and from that motion will come a sound. And as I cross the stage, when I reach somewhere in front of you, I ask that you join me in making that motion and making that sound. And through doing this, we'll invite the rain of inspiration into this room, and we'll invite that sound of water to cleanse us all and to prepare us for these amazing words of inspiration.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you guys, how's your evening going so far? I'm liking what I'm seeing and I'm liking what I'm hearing, and I just want to say thank you for all of you who made the trip out here, who took the time to travel, to connect with others, to connect with yourself, to ground yourself, to learn, and to join with other people, other ways of thinking, other ways of speaking, and other ways of expression. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to introduce Takaya Blaney to you, but first, I also want to let you know that after she comes up, it's going to be followed by a beautiful performance by Honey and the Sting as well, too. So, the next part, I also want to talk about the next part of this plenary. The next part of the plenary is going to include a series of commitments from emerging leaders who will be sharing those things with you. And it's going to be a really interesting night. We've only just gotten started so far. So for now, I want to introduce Takaya. She's a 14-year-old actress and Indigenous rights activist, and environmental activist as well. She's spoken at UN gatherings, including the tunes at UN Children and Youth Conferences as well. So please help me to welcome Takaya Blaney.
First, I would like to acknowledge and respect the people of the Ute, Paiute, Goshu, and Navajo. My name is Takaya. It means water. My ancestral name is Chagajimuch. It was given to me by my kukpa, my grandfather. Chagajimuch was a speaker, provider for our peoples, ensuring justice for the Sliaman nation, my nation. And today, I am doing my best to honor my name. Today, I stand beside you on the edge of a revolution to change our world for the better. And I bet a few of you just rolled your eyes. But it isn't wrong to believe that we can change the world. It's only wrong to believe that we can change the world alone. Society is a back and forth duet between vision and impossibility. Those ambitiously constructed blueprints and impossible formulas for radical change in a landscape of adversity, ideas that demand and deserve to be made real. That idea, fed by justice, no matter how small, is what changing the world looks like. A passion for art, music, expression that ingrains its determination into your thought and movement, commanding itself to be anthems of movement, proclamations of freedom, the heartbeat of revolution. That song is what changing the world sounds like. Whatever unfathomable strength that it takes to look unwaveringly into the face of genocide, inequality, racism, systemic silencing, injustice, and instead of a feeling of insurmountable defeat and conformity, we look into the eyes of injustice and see a reflection of resilience. And that is what changing the world looks like. To do the round dance of reclamation and assertion and cognizance of us as a living testimony to the failure of our system designed to silence and obliterate the other, the indigenous. Yet here we remain with our revolution in one hand and our eagle feathers in the other. That is what changing the world looks like. Change is the fuel that ignites the momentum of our nations to match the speed of our times, and our times call to be fueled by new innovation and change, not fossil fuels and an old unjust paradigm. And this may seem like a stretch, but we need crazy ideas to match our crazy times. It's not naive, or ludicrous, or unreasonable, or futile. It's not even new, this idea, because we stand on the shoulders of invisible, monumental giants, perseverant movers and shakers that came before us and propelled our narrative from victim to resilience, that engendered the revolutions of today, and today is not a rehearsal for tomorrow. As youth, we're not immobilized on standby to lead the future. We are the identifiable face of rapid change during our times. Tomorrow's predictions are today's decisions, and what is happening fast. And so now we stand at the precipice of cultural deterioration, environmental catastrophe, and these are the defining, pivotal challenges that will typify our generational capabilities, combating these issues as the people and the planet of today. And let me say, I'm excited about the future. So bring your crazy plans, unreasonable, ambitious ideas, naive notions of changing the world. Bring your ancestors with you. Bring the old ways, bring the new ways, bring your justice, bring your music. And together, let's teach the history books of tomorrow a lesson in doing what is fundamentally right. In my culture, it is a fact, it is an understanding of our way of life that everything is connected. The bloodlines of the land, the watersheds, the rivers are the bloodlines of our peoples. We are connected to our earth. And as humans, we have the responsibility, the obligation to be the caretakers and the stewards, to be the voice for those who have none, for those whose voice goes unheard. And now, we are the momentum. We are the unstoppable force. We are the change. One empowered person is the only unit of change, and put together, we make change. You have a voice. Be heard. We have a responsibility to the future that we leave behind. So together, I'm so honored to ask us all to design a better world. Thank you.
ice melt from source to sea, flow with fresh air, wash away with the spring, oh, the honey and the sting. Wash away, wash me clean. Oh. Water runs free and clear, wash away obstacles, fears, wash away to the sea. Oh. Watch them float on down, down the river. I washed all my peace, all of my in the river. Watch them float on down, down the river. I washed all my thieves in the river.
Continuing with the tradition of emerging leaders making commitments, I would like to invite first Zach Hunter to the stage. Zach is an author, a social entrepreneur, and anti-slavery activist. He's been named a modern-day hero by CNN and has spoken at 2 different White House roundtables. Following Zach's declaration, we would like to invite Andrea Zucker to the stage. Andrea is a Nexus Outreach ambassador, a writer, a social impact investor who believes each of us should harness our gifts to find our best ways to give. Zach, and then Andrea.
Hi, my name's Zach, and thank you so much for having me here. It's been a pleasure, sincerely, getting to sit in on seminars earlier today. I don't know if another gathering like this exists in the world. I know I've never been to one. I've been to so many conferences, more than most 23-year-olds probably, and this is truly something special. And then the fact that you would invite me to come and speak is just a huge honor. Well, I know I only have a couple minutes here, but I also want to say thank you for believing in my generation. The fact that you guys gave an entire session to young people is also something rare and something beautiful. I know that a lot of previous generations like to complain about the generations that are coming up, and to see you saying, we're going to bring you along, we're going to give you a platform because we believe that you're not just the future, you're the present, and that means a lot. But today I want to talk about justice, I want to talk about defending the vulnerable, and I want to talk about love. And for some of us, this will be an affirmation of what we already know and are beginning to understand how to practice in our lives. And for some of us, this will be a very real challenge. I'm not sure which one it is for me today. But first, I want to tell you a little bit of my story. This particular part of my story begins shortly after I turned 12. It was Black History Month, and I was learning about what to me is the biggest blemish on the face of American history, which is slavery, and the fact that people with my skin color thought it was okay to own other people simply based on the color of their skin. And as I was learning about this in history class, I would find myself getting angry, and that seemed like kind of a unique reaction among my classmates, because people were like, this is just history, this is what happened, and sure, it was bad, but as I was reading about it, I imagined, friends of mine in those situations, and I got really angry, but I felt like it was too late in history for me to do anything to help change the world. I thought it was too late in human history, because all the big battles had already been fought, is what I thought. I thought slavery had already been abolished, and that all was said and done. And it was around that time that I found out there are more than 27 million people physically enslaved around the world today. I found out about human trafficking, and I got angry all over again. And it was at that point that I realized something that I've carried with me since then for the last 12 years, which is that we have emotions for a reason. It's not enough to feel angry, it's not enough to feel sad, it's not enough to feel guilty when we're confronted with the suffering of others. The reason why we have emotions is to motivate us into action. And so that's what I did. I started a fund and awareness raiser called Loose Change to Loosen Chains, basically just trying to raise money and awareness about the plight of modern-day slavery. And I honestly believe that if people realized how easily they could get involved, how easily they could make a difference, that everyone would have a desire to stand for a noble cause. And I think most people want to know that their life counts, that we can do something here and now in terms of helping someone else. And I think most of us think we're pretty good people who would readily come to the aid and defense of somebody who is defenseless, somebody who is being abused or picked on if they were in immediate danger. And many of us here do. Many of you do. We give to charities or are directly involved in tangibly meeting people's needs, even on a daily basis. But I want to talk about something that's been messing with my brain for a little bit, which is how does this reflect in our personal lives? Because in my own life, I say I care about people who've been marginalized. I say that I care about making sure people feel included, yet I often find myself with my back against the wall, swinging a proverbial sword, not defending the oppressed or what is actually right, but defending myself, my opinions, and what I think is the right way of doing something. And the thing is, we only have so many words in a day. We only have so many hours in a day. And I find myself, I don't know if any of you struggle with this, but I find myself spending my energy, spending my words on behalf of myself, on behalf of petty disagreements, on behalf of things that sometimes don't really matter. And that's inconsistent with my public self, with who I say I am and who I may appear to be. The prophet Isaiah said, "Seek justice, help the oppressed, defend the cause of orphans, fight for the rights of widows." Do we think this applies only to one set of people, this kind of behavior? Can we speak up for those whose voices are being suppressed and then treat our families or friends like garbage? Do we think that we can vote to be a voice for the voiceless and then look the other way when someone is mistreated in our own community? Do we think we can sign petitions and click like on Facebook when it comes to fighting injustice around the world and then ignore a sexist, racist, or homophobic comment? The answer has to be no. And I could stand up here and speak all day about righting wrongs committed against people, about peaceful resistance and defending the vulnerable, but if I'm not living that out on the micro scale in my everyday life with a cashier at a shop or when my best friend calls me needing a favor, I am a hypocrite. What I'm talking about is consistency between our public self and our private self. When I was researching for my second book, I came across an article by a young woman named Dara Fisk-Eckinger. And Dara wrote about an instance of racism that occurred in her community, which was clearly horrible and tragic and offensive. But she continues by describing how we all descended from the same people, how we are all one people. We are united in our humanity regardless of skin tone or ethnic heritage. And this reminds me of the South African concept of Ubuntu, which I'm not sure I'm pronouncing correctly, but it can be roughly translated as human kindness or humanness, but is often used to describe the bond that connects all humanity, our mutual humanity. And I see this concept reflected in the songs of the American abolitionist movement of old, in particular one song called "If One of Us is Chained, None of Us is Free." And I'm sure many of you have heard of this, but I think it's an important reminder nonetheless. My point is this: our freedom and our very humanity is inextricably linked to that of each other. If someone is being hurt and we look the other way, we are, as Sir Edmund Burke pointed out, complicit in the triumph of evil. But when we speak up, when we take action to support and defend the humanity of another, we are not only lifting someone else up, we are elevating our own humanity as well. And this brings me to the crux of what I believe all of this is about: love. And not a warm, fuzzy feeling that's mostly hormonal and makes you feel like you've eaten an entire bar of chocolate by yourself, but a love that makes people willing to lay down their lives for what they believe in and for the freedom of others. So often we rush to defend ourselves and our reputation, or to fight about petty things or things that are impermanent, things that don't last. But as a person of faith, I feel that I've given up my right to be personally offended. We need to be the people, the women and men who rise above the level to which we are naturally inclined and instead fight for what really matters. And this brings me to my last point. In the words of Rosa Parks, I would like to be known as a person who is concerned about freedom and equality and justice and prosperity for all people. This is my deep hope, dream, and prayer for my generation. If we are to be known for anything, let it be this.
Hello, everyone. I want to tell you how blessed I feel to be here with you. There's such love at the Parliament and in this room right now. So, on Easter Sunday in 1998, a white Jewish high school girl, my younger self, sat in the pews of Emmanuel AME, a church in Charleston, South Carolina, that's been part of the fabric of the community since the era of slavery. I sat there as a part of a group called Operation Understanding, which was made up of 6 African American and 6 Jewish teens working to understand each other and working to build a generation of leaders which would not accept discrimination in any form. In that process of over a year, we met with one another weekly, and we had discussions where we came to know our differences and learn to understand our own implicit bias, because each of us does have implicit bias and our own assumptions, and we bettered ourselves through knowing each other and getting to know each other. But we also discovered our commonalities the more important part, which, of course, all of us have so many commonalities. And on that Easter Sunday, as we sat in the church and sang a hymn, the song rose in the air and up into the high ceilings, and suddenly all of the difference melted away, and all that there was the unity of prayer and of song, and we sat together in there, and that's what we felt, togetherness. Now, unfortunately, in this day, there's a different sound in Emmanuel AME. There's still, with the hymns, there's the sound of tears, since the very tragic shooting when one person full of extreme hate killed 9 innocent people who were in their Bible study and who had welcomed him into their Bible study with open arms. But what we must remember is that just as one person has the potential to bring so much hatred, each of us has that much potential and more to bring so much love into this world. Growing up as a Jewish girl in Charleston, South Carolina, I was a minority. However, I thrived in that otherness, and my parents, who were community leaders and who were equally involved in both the Jewish community and the community at large, taught my 2 brothers and me the concept of tzedakah. Tzedakah is a Hebrew word which people traditionally translate to mean charity, but actually the root word in tzedakah is tzedek, which means justice. So my parents taught us that tzedakah, that doing good in the community, was not something like charity that implies something good you do to get a pat on the back, but rather it was the only path towards justice. It was a must. It wasn't a choice. We all had to contribute to our community to bring justice. My parents also taught us that we had to look outside of ourselves, that we couldn't expect with each of our limited perspectives that we should know exactly what to do in this world. Instead, we must understand that people of different backgrounds, of different cultures, of people with different expertise could help us in the process of doing good in this world so that our good could be multiplied through bringing together our various perspectives. There's a story in the Torah of when Yitro, the father-in-law of Moses, joins the Jewish people in the desert. Yitro was not Jewish. He was a priest of Midian. However, when Yitro came to meet the Jewish people, he said to Moses, "Moses, what you're doing here is no good. You're trying to take the judgment of your people only upon yourself. It's too much of a burden for one person. You can't do that to yourself. You need to create a system. You need to have a system of scholars, of people who are above prophet, to help you in that process." And though his father-in-law was from a different background, he humbly heard out his advice, and not only heard out his advice, but took it. Because we have to know that we can't always see everything so clearly from where we stand. We need to have others as a part of that greater picture. I was very blessed when I was able to get a job that really brought together the lessons that I had learned in the traditions of my faith and in the experience of my life, and to bring that into every day. I work for an amazing organization called Nexus Youth Summit. We have over 2,500 members from 70 countries, well, over 70 countries, and we bring together millennial social change makers and millennial wealth holders, and we bridge those worlds to try to create a shift in global consciousness towards a culture that celebrates diversity. We have summits where we create dialogue, where we educate people and really encourage their conversations so that they might collaborate to accelerate solutions to global problems. Because when we work together, when we understand that sharing our ideas gets us further, it brings us all so much more. So I just want to tell all of you that I hope that you understand that in this process of doing good in the world, we can fully embrace our own faiths. We don't have to look away from that. We can also look outward at other people and see the love and the good in their faiths. We can come together and share ideas, and in doing that, we all have the potential to do so much more in this world. So please, embrace yourself, embrace each other. If you want to turn to your neighbor and give them a hug, then do, and know that we all have the potential in sharing with each other and in celebrating the bounty of diversity to do so much more good in this world.
I'd like to take this time to introduce you to a performance presented by the Museum of World Religions, The Heart of Chan, by Grammy Award winner Yangjin Lemu, swordplay, and Chan drummers. Please welcome them.
Yeah.
I swear they look so normal backstage. And they come out here and they do that. Can we give another round of applause? I told you this plenary was going to take this stage to a different planet. So we have a set of young people who want to come and declare another set of commitments. We're going to start with Suzanne Barakat. Suzanne is a resident in family medicine at the University of California at San Francisco. I met her some years ago, actually, when she was at Duke. And in between, she's worked at a public health clinic serving refugees along the Turkey-Syria border. After Suzanne, we are going to have Pardeep Kaleka. Pardeep is the eldest son of Satwan Singh Kaleka, the president of the Sikh Temple of Wisconsin, who was killed in the massacre in August 2012. Pardeep is training to be a mental health counselor. He will be joined by his friend and colleague Rahul Dubai. After Pardeep and Rahul, we will have Faatimah Knight. Faatimah is pursuing an MA in Religious Studies at the Chicago Theological Seminary and holds a BA in Islamic Law and Theology from Zaytuna College in Berkeley. Finally, we will have Yonatan Belik and Hiba El-Hindi. Yonatan participates in a mixed Palestinian-Israeli-Australian football team, using it as a tool to build bridges amongst youth in conflict. Hiba works with Peace Players Middle East as one of the international fellows, where she helps manage Peace Players communities in Northern Ireland. Thank you all for who you are and for your declarations. Suzanne, can you join us, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the Parliament for inviting me here tonight. Each and every one of us has a really important story to share, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to share mine with you here tonight. On December 27th, 2014, my baby brother Dia got married. 23 years old, 6'3" basketball fanatic, second-year dental student at a top dental school in the country at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He was getting married to his lovely bride, Yusur Abu Sadha, who had turned 21 the day prior and who had just gotten accepted to UNC Dental School to join him in the fall. On the morning of his wedding day, he was his typical happy-go-lucky self. He took a dip in the pool, that's how chill he was. He asked me for the honor of combing his hair on his wedding day. And as you probably all know, combing a guy's hair on his wedding day is a pretty sensitive thing. I sat in his lap, as I would usually do, my petite self and his tall body, started combing his hair to the side that he liked, kissed his forehead, and by the end of the night was sobbing uncontrollably, seeing my young little brother turn into a grown man with such a bright future ahead of him. I go back to San Francisco, where I'm doing my residency in family medicine at UCSF. And one night on February 10th, I'm on call. I'm writing a prescription, and my phone starts blowing up with text messages sending condolences. At this point, I have no idea what's going on. I kind of assumed it was probably related to an extended family member in Syria, given the ongoing conflict. A couple phone calls later, and I learned that there has been a shooting in Dia's apartment complex, yet unclear where. I was like, okay, I'm not worried. My brother is not involved in drugs and alcohol and partying. It's unlikely that he would get caught up in anything that would result in a shooting. A few more phone calls, Google searches, wiping the floor of the hospital as I faint over and over again. I learned that my baby brother Dia, his wife Yusur, and her baby sister Razan were shot in the back of the head, execution style, gunned down in their own home. Dia having opened the door, Yusur and Razan in the kitchen area where they were just eating dinner. It's never easy to talk about this. I book a red-eye flight. There's no Wi-Fi on the plane, and by the time I land in North Carolina, the police had issued a statement calling this a parking dispute. I appreciated that sarcastic laugh in the back, because sometimes that's all you can do, because it's so absurd. And then there are other laughs that I don't think it was related to our talk. There are no words to describe the sudden, violent, gruesome, senseless, traumatic loss of 3 beautiful, bright, kind, loving, talented, community service-oriented kids. There are no words to describe my inability to comprehend why this happened, why it was allowed to happen, why it is okay that our media, our politicians, Fox News, Hollywood, are allowed to vilify a large group of people here in our country. And then it begs the question of why is it allowed to happen again? Fast forward, and for hundreds of these cases that go unheard of, there are a few that are highlighted on television, and you probably have all heard of the story of Ahmed Mohammed, a Texan high school student who was excited and brought a clock he created to school and was subsequently arrested for fear that he had made a bomb. We live in a time where Islamophobia is bigotry that is acceptable. No other group at this time is as targeted as Muslims and is considered okay. Politicians, presidential candidates, today, if you turn on the news, find political gain and financial gain from bashing Muslims. It's time we take some meaningful steps. And you may ask, why do I care? And the honest truth is, I'm not always so sure, because the worst thing that could have happened to any family has happened to mine, and the things we try and prevent has happened to mine. But if there's anything we can do to try and prevent this from repeating itself, from trying to raise awareness and holding people accountable, then I'm going to try and work to do that. I can't read that, I'm really sorry. I'm not sure what this statement says. I'll have someone say it if it needs to be said. So, in the few months following the aftermath of February, there have been a lot of amazing things that have come out of this. Again, nothing will ever make up for the loss that we've had. The universities that they had attended formed scholarships in their honor. A dental relief trip that Dia and Yusuf were planning for the summer, where they were planning to raise $20,000 to help in the aid of Syrian refugees for dental care. They have reached $500,000, and that money has gone to create an endowment fund that will support such endeavors for years and decades to come. UNC Dental School created and dedicated a day annually called Dia Day, dedicating efforts and honoring Dia and Yusur, where the entire dental school closes off, their clinics close off, and all of their students are required to give back to the community in a day of community service. On my own campus at UCSF, we have started conversations with senior leadership. We have held Grand Rounds, which is a unique medical lecture that is given titled Challenging Islamophobia, the first of its kind in the country that will hopefully be replicated across other institutions, We are in conversations with leadership, including the chancellor and the chief medical officer, to try and allow our campuses to be more inclusive, more equitable, and to hold people accountable for these micro and macro aggressions. I was born and raised in this country, and I grew accustomed to just accepting these microaggressions that happen to me on a daily basis. But after February, realizing that the way I used to handle it is to smile and to just say, if I can just show them that who I am and I'm just a human being, that maybe they can change their mind about whatever stereotype they have built in their mind about me, that could change things. But unfortunately, I don't think that's enough. When your family is murdered, it's not enough. Clearly, it wasn't enough. And so I can't do this work alone. And it's time that all of us collectively find this responsibility on our shoulders to stand up in the face of injustice when we see these micro or macro aggressions, to stand up and say, hey, this is actually not okay. I leave you with a quote. I found this quote by Martin Luther King Jr. to be really powerful and eloquent, and I thought really helped summarize the essence of what I'm trying to say. And he said, in the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Thank you.
First and foremost, I didn't say it earlier, but Sat Sri Akal. Sat Sri Akal for us means God is truth. It is what we say when we greet and when we say goodbye. Another fundamental principle of Sikhi is this concept of Ek Onkar, meaning one God, one creator that created all. So if you put these two principles together, God is truth, we are one. You can fundamentally come up with the truth that we are one. It was this truth that was tested on August 5th, 2012, when a white supremacist gunman walked into the Sikh temple, Wisconsin, and murdered 6 people, left another man in a vegetative state, and shot a police officer 15 times before he took his own life. Now, I can go and tell you a lot of things about that day, and a lot of stories, and a lot of things that happened. But what I want to tell you, and what comes to mind right now, is the power of prayer and the purpose of prayer. That day, we felt at our most vulnerable. Our community felt helpless, hopeless. We were searching for answers that people were not able to provide us at the time. In our desperation, in my desperation, across the street from the temple, we had made our command post downstairs in the bowling alley. I saw this little child. And in her face, I saw this empty stare, like she had seen something that she wasn't supposed to see. So I walked up to her, and in my desperation, I asked her, what happened inside there? And she tells me, as soon as the shooting started, me, my brother, and my mother went to go finding hiding spots. We ran into the basement. We hid down there until the shooting ceased. Then we waited and we waited. And then after a half an hour, we came out. I said, why did you come out of your hiding spot? She says, because I wanted to find my father. I couldn't find my father. So she says that she goes upstairs. She looks around. She sees bodies laying here and bodies laying over there, some of them in their own pools of blood. until she finally sees her father. He's lying in a hallway doorway, and she says that she goes and starts to shake him. Daddy, wake up. Daddy, wake up. But Dad didn't respond. And when she looked down at her dad and looked at his face, she saw that one eye was missing, and there was blood trickling out of this eye. I didn't tell her, but I knew that her dad was no longer. And in my selfishness, I said to her, "Did you see my father?" And she says, "Yes. He was in that same room that my dad was in." "Did he say anything to you? Was he breathing? Was he alive?" "He was alive. He was breathing, but barely. And he told me to go find a hiding spot until we knew that it was safe." What was he saying? He was saying this word over and over and over again. This word, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru. And then when she went to go find that hiding spot, she hid in the bathroom until she heard him no more. Before anybody could tell me, I knew that my father was no longer. And then I started to think to myself, at least he died in the place that he helped build. He died for the community that he helped build. He died crying out to God this prayer. The prayer means taking from lightness to dark, taking from darkness to light. And I said to myself, good. He prayed for himself. Then I thought about the rest of the victims, and I assumed that they probably said the same word, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru. And I was at peace, thinking to myself, they died in the place of prayer, calling to God to come get them. And then I thought of something. And I thought of who they were and what they represented. They were Sikhs. They were immigrants. They had come here for a better life. They were some of the most selfless people that we have ever met. And then I knew what they were praying for. These prayers were not for self. These prayers were for you. These prayers are yours to answer. Nothing ever happens by happenstance. There is a purpose for everything in life. And the purpose of those prayers was for that one day I can be up here speaking to you, asking you to not leave with just those messages, to not just leave with this inspiration in your heart, but take this inspiration with you back to the communities you belong to. Sow seeds of love in everyone that you see, whether they show it back to you or not. Be courageous. Be courageous. The last thing I'm going to say, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first guru that we had, once he realized the truth, once he understood the truth, in his desperation, 500 years ago, on his 2 feet, he walked from India to Sri Lanka, from Sri Lanka to Afghanistan, from Afghanistan to Pakistan, Pakistan to Iraq, to Iran, to Tibet, to China. Please do not stop at praying for purpose, but work for purpose, walk for purpose. And I just want to leave you guys with a sense of prayer that my brother Rahul is going to tell you.
Thank you, everyone. It's reminiscent of all those memories when Pardeep said that. It was a flashback for us. August 2012 came back into our mind when I lost my godfather, Pardeep's dad. He always used to say, read Bani from the book, from the 11th Guru, which is a live Guru, Guru Granth Sahib. Read Bani, because that is going to teach you to a better person. Before you are born, you are in mother's womb. Your mom is your best messenger of God. When you get born, you don't have any faith. What you are a human being. We practice faith. I was born in a Hindu family. My godparents were Sikh. Now I'm a practicing Sikh. But what I do is read Bani. Nanak said, Nanak naam chardi kala, tere pane sarbat da pala. That means God is the higher power. Whatever He does, we are always in His will. We will rise from the ashes. It's chardi kala, which means tragedy to triumph. From past 3 years, we have been working on that path to put tragedy at the back door and put triumph in the front. I want you to hold everyone's hand when we go here and speak with me these 3 lines. We want to make a difference. We are change makers. We are peace warriors. Thank you. For my Sikh brothers, Bole Sonihal, Sat Shri Akal. Thank you.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. First, I'd like to thank the Parliament for inviting me here today. I feel deeply honored and humbled to be here, considering that I really am at the beginning stages of my own journey. So I'd like to begin by talking to you about some emerging leaders who lived a long time ago. And then I'd like to talk to you about our project, Rebuild with Love, a Muslim-led initiative to help rebuild Black churches after they'd been burned down by arsonists in the South. I want to throw out some names to you. Faatimah bint Muhammad, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Aisha bint Abu Bakr, Mus'ab ibn Umair, Uthman ibn Affan, and Abu Huraira. They're Arabic names. Some of you will recognize these names because these are some of the most well-known companions of the Prophet Muhammad. Most Muslims would have some knowledge of these men and women. The reasons why I bring them up together as a group is because they were all young when Prophet Muhammad first got his revelation from God. And when we say they were present when he first received his revelation from God, we should remember what the revelation was. It was, in its own way, a revolution. It brought absolute chaos and dissension, but it also brought the most sublime, almost unreasonable brotherly and sisterly love that these people had ever seen. So when we say they were there, it means they saw him preach under the glorious light of the Arabian sun to people like themselves for whom the message had come just in time. It means they saw him threatened with death over and over again by those who found the message entirely inconvenient because of its social justice and egalitarian overtones. It means they sat with him while he told them how honored they should feel to be creations of God, honored with intellects, hearts, language, and beauty, and the ability to know their Lord. It means they sat with him while he questioned them as to the strength of their faith that they could bear to go to sleep at night while their brother down the road lay awake, restless, kept there by the hollow pain in his stomach from lack of food. So we have all these young people being taught and nurtured in the ethics and spirituality of their religion, experiencing triumphs and challenges with the community. Then these young people go out and they literally change the world with the kind of tenacity and creativity that young people have at their best, nurtured but not sheltered, worldly but not broken. When I think of examples of these kinds of people in our current period, I think of Ravindran and Yusur, Abu Salha, and Dia Barakat, 3 Muslim students gunned down in their apartment in North Carolina, all 3 of whom were deeply invested in the health and welfare of refugees, which stands as a testament to the vibrancy and dynamism in the homes they grew up in and the people that they grew up with. Before I say more about the initiative itself, I'd like to speak to the history of targeting Black churches. We should keep in mind that attacks on Black churches are a very old form of intimidation in the South, historically used to strike fear into the hearts of Black people. So its results were both physical and psychological damage. Although it is true that arson at religious institutions has decreased over the decades, attacks on Black churches today are as haunting a reminder of what used to be a norm in this country. And the fact that almost immediately, when a Black church is burned down, before investigators can conclude that it is arson, many Black people make that conclusion for themselves, which speaks to a very real anxiety under the surface that many members of the Black community carry with them. The act of burning Black churches is emblematic of the very difficult position Black people have historically been in. The tenuousness, the fact of living in between a rock and a hard place, forced to exist in this land but criminalized and brutalized for trying to create a life worth living in this land. A church is a community's attempt to strike roots in the ground, which seems benign enough, but the Black church has continually come into conflict because certain segments in society only want Black people to live tangentially, on the surface, and in a state of anxiety. The church, when it's at its best, is a bed of ideas, a hub of learning, a center out of which thought spreads outward and through the community, a place to reaffirm one's humanity and worth before God, a place to organize and plan for the future of the community. So when there are people who are uncomfortable with Black people finding permanence, then attacking a center of spirit and culture like the church makes total sense. Some may ask why I, as a Muslim, am so concerned with the Black church. I'm concerned because Black people are my people, and this country is my country, and because I don't want to live in a world where dark-skinned people are perpetually oppressed, where unsubstantiated hatred of the other, whoever that other is, often turns violent. When Prophet Muhammad told us to free the slaves, he didn't say only the Muslim slaves. He just said free the slaves, because people are born free, should live free, and die free. What's interesting and perhaps unique about the burning of Black churches in America is that the perpetuators of these crimes are people who would likely identify as Christians. So this is actually, in an odd way, Christian on Christian violence. That's a fair lens, I think, with which to view it. In other countries, we might tend to see people of different faiths at odds with each other, one group aggressing against another. However, in this country, historically, white on Black hate crimes can usually also be viewed as Christian on Christian hate crimes. And I think it's important to acknowledge, because we don't tend to think of ourselves as a country that has religious violence. In fact, religious freedom is at the center of how we tell the story about ourselves. But the forced conversion of Native populations in the West to Christianity was often done through religious violence. They didn't have religious freedom. The forced conversion of enslaved Africans was often accomplished through religious violence. They didn't have religious freedom. And that threat never really went away, it just morphed. so that if blacks didn't preach or testify to the kind of feel-good Christianity they were taught, if they didn't practice a humility that was more along the lines of despondency, if they didn't love their oppressors, there was again fear of retribution. So even people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. were sometimes criticized for not being quite Christian enough, which was really just code for not sitting back and taking your oppression. The first church burning on record happened in 1822, and that's 40 years prior to emancipation. Probably one of the most well-known incidents of a church burning was the 1963 bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, which killed 4 girls. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave the eulogy for those 4 young victims. And even during the 90s, over 100 black churches were burned down. The campaign that my team started, Rebuild with Love, was driven by the principle that all houses of worship are sacred. And the oft-quoted, "All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing." The initiative had 3 parts: to raise awareness of the hate crimes afflicted upon these churches, to raise money within the Muslim community in order to help the churches rebuild, to develop a connection with these churches built on a foundation of goodwill. We wanted to send a strong message of support and to stand up against hate. We know that fear can be devastating and crippling, and that even if someone can dust themselves off from hate, it doesn't mean that feeling of having been targeted or violated will permanently go away. We wanted to contribute to dissipating that fear that those congregations must have been feeling by extending a helping hand that they didn't anticipate reaching out to them. We also wanted to make very clear the deep connections between the black community and the Muslim community, and that 1/3 of American Muslims are black, and that up to 20% of Africans brought to the Americas to be slaves were Muslims. We wanted to take that message and present it to the Muslim community and say, listen, this is our problem too. So we fundraised within the Muslim community and gave those funds to the churches, and I'm happy to report that those churches are beginning to rise from the ashes. Thank you.
All right, let's see if the PowerPoint's working. Oh, can we go back? Thank you. Hi, my name is Hibel Hindi, and I'm here to talk about my work with Peace Players. Before starting, I want to talk about a little bit with about my partner and I. We worked for an organization called Seeds of Peace, and at our time there, we realized that we can engage youth through sports, music, and the arts. And we both used the venue of sports to promote peace and coexistence. So I work for Peace Players International, a nonprofit started back in 2001 with the goal of bringing divided communities together by using basketball as a medium. Peace Players International works in 4 different regions: in Northern Ireland, Cyprus, South Africa, and the Middle East. I work for the Middle East office, and I was attracted to that office because I come from Palestinian origins. So I'll be focusing on our Middle East office and our programming there. Our work primarily focuses with Palestinian and Israeli youth. A lot of you have probably heard and are paying attention to the news. The situation in the region, and especially in Jerusalem, has escalated. Violence is deployed by both sides, and it's not the easiest times. I'm not here to dwell on the hatred or injustice committed daily. I'm here to talk about the amazing work that's being done by young children and young adults in changing perceptions and trying to make change on the ground. I'm here to share 2 stories of our participants who beautifully exemplify conflict transformation, and I'm really, really honored to share their stories. First, we have Noe. Noe is from a West Jerusalem neighborhood, and she's Jewish. She's been a part of Peace Players for nearly 8 years, and now she's completing her mandatory Israeli army service. When Noe first joined back when she was 12, she was completely petrified, and so were her parents. Her dad, in fact, a police officer in Jerusalem, told her, "It's dangerous to play with Arabs." So when Noe walked onto her first event with Peace Players, she carried the fear and the prejudice her family had. And that's completely normal. Most of the participants who come are a little bit scared. And that fear doesn't go away with the first practice with the Palestinians or the Jews. It stays there for a bit. But Noe kept on coming back for the basketball. And eventually she started coming back for the people too. When Noe went on the court and was able to extend her relationship with her Palestinian teammates past just a basketball relationship and onto a friendship basis, the walls of fear and prejudice actually came down for her. And she didn't just stop there. She took that transformation to her family, to her community, and to her friends. And not everyone listens, but some people do. And Noe's family listened. Her dad, who told her it's dangerous to play with Arabs, listened. In fact, last year, Noe's parents hosted a large gathering with her teammates and other Peace Player participants. Her teammates include half Palestinians from Jerusalem and half Jews from Jerusalem. Let me give you a little bit of context. To that. It's completely unheard of and very, very rare to have a Palestinian in your home if you're Jewish, or if you're Jewish, to have a Palestinian in your home. In fact, most relationships in Jerusalem don't extend the typical business relationship. So to have a Palestinian in your home is a complete 180 for Noe's family. She was able to extend her transformation not just to herself, but to those around her. You can see Noe there with her participants, and this is Noe's family hosting the Peace Player participants. Now let's talk about Khalid. Khalid is 23 years old, and he's from an East Jerusalem neighborhood. Before going into Khalid's story, I want to talk about his neighborhood, Asawiya. Asawiya is a Palestinian neighborhood in East Jerusalem, and it's a really, really tough place. It's known for its tough and gritty nature. There you can see clashes usually with the Israeli army and the community, the youth in the community. Now, Asawiya has a stereotype of being skeptical and even hostile towards coexistence and peace initiatives, making it a really difficult place to be a peace player sometimes. When Khalid started back with Peace Players in 2005, he was also afraid, normal, but he stuck with the program. And the program was able to grow and adjust for him to meet his needs. It was able to retain Khalid for 10 years and is still retaining him and keeping him active in programming, which is phenomenal. So Khalid moved from participant to becoming an assistant coach and became a coach with his coach's certification. So he was able to move forward with programming. You can see Khalid here coaching participants. And not did he just move forward with programming, he was actually able to take programming back to Asawiya, his neighborhood. Now he's able to afford that rare opportunity to his family members, to his community members, and friends. He has this trust of his community and is able to build a connection with those people there. It's phenomenal because the transformation didn't just stick with him, it actually moved to his neighborhood. So Khaled, it can be seen here actually helping his team members complete a group challenge activity with Jewish participants. So there are many, many programs on the ground that are trying to teach and empower Israeli and Palestinian youth to come together. But it needs to be more than that. If we think about it, it's a simple idea. If we bring together people that have only heard negative things about each other, stereotypes will start dispelling themselves because we realize we share humanity. It still needs to be taken a step further than that. There needs to be the conflict transformation extended to those around us, and that's what Peace Players is able to do so beautifully. It's taking transformation and extending it to the community. Peace Players shows that if children can play together, they can learn to live together as well. So, if you would like to learn more or become involved, please visit our website or come talk to me. I'd be more than happy to introduce you to the Peace Player way. Thank you.
How we doing? How we doing? Are we awake? All right. Okay, here's the screen. My name is Yonatan Belik, 25-year-old from Jerusalem, Israeli. I currently study Middle East Islam and Business Administration, but I study at the Hebrew University, which is in the eastern side. So Hiba told you a bit about Jerusalem, and I'm sure you know things aren't so easy. So when I go to university, there's not so much interaction between the Jews and the Arabs. And this is something that bothers me, bothers Hiba, and bothers other people as well. So what I decided to do was create a team. If you look up above, you'll see a picture of a team. The AFL, Jerusalem Peace Team. What is AFL? AFL is Australian Football League. How many of you know what this sport is? Raise your hand. All right, I see 5. So I'll try and expand it a little more. Basically, Australian football, for those who don't know, is a combination of lots of sports. It's like volleyball, all right? You can hand pass the ball. You can bounce the ball like basketball. You kick it, you tackle. It even has goals like in Harry Potter, like Quidditch, all right? It's everything. So what I did was